Well, hey, welcome back to Mike Seibert Radio. I am your host, and as you can already tell, we're riding commute again for this early review of Jurassic World Dominion. I had the opportunity to see an advanced screening, and I thought as I drive to work here, I'm gonna talk to you about it and share with you some of my thoughts and see if I can save you a little bit of money. And then as a bonus, I'm running a little ahead of schedule this morning, so I'm going to get to work a little earlier than anticipated, which means I've got a little extra time while I'm sitting in the parking garage before I have to go on shift. What that means is once I stop driving and I get to work, I am going to see if I can answer some of your questions. I put it out on Twitter saying, well, I've seen an advanced screening of the movie, so ask me anything. So I got a couple responses to that, and I will respond to those at the end of this episode once I get to the parking garage at work. Also, you could probably also hear it. It's raining here in Seattle, so you get to enjoy a little bit of that extra ambience. I don't know at what point that diegetic sound starts to either annoy you or become like extra bonus texture. You'll have to let me know about that. Do I label this as a ASMR podcast where it's like you could hear the raindrops on the sunroof of my car? Yeah, do a bunch of weird stereo panning. I don't know why I'm talking about ASMR. That's very silly. Let's talk about a little bit of Jurassic World. So right up front, just, because like every podcast is somebody's first podcast, so I need to own my bias right off the bat. Jurassic Park is not my favorite franchise. A lot of kids my age are dinosaur fans, and really because of like Jurassic Park, kind of cemented that fandom. But kids my age were always like into dinosaurs, and I was never really one of them. Like the dinosaurs I was into were the Dinobots, so like that's kind of where my affection for dinosaurs kind of begins and ends into adulthood. I had toy dinosaurs when I was a kid, but I was never a dinosaur guy. I was always more attracted to technology. I'm a Star Trek guy. I think I'm more into Star Trek than I am to Star Wars anymore. I like technology more than I like magic. And I like technology more than I like monsters. Not that dinosaurs are specifically monsters, but I like robots and ray guns and jetpacks and spaceships. That is the type of fiction that appeals to me most. So, and I talked about this a lot in a MSRP Rewind episode I just put up 4 years ago, back in 2018. We did an episode about Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Did a lengthy review discussion about that movie, but also kind of talked about and celebrated the 25th anniversary of Jurassic Park. My co-host at the time, Killing Spree, is very much into Jurassic Park and very much into dinosaurs, and we talked a lot about that very affectionately. So if you want to hear that side of it, please go ahead and check out that episode. I kind of tightened it up a little bit and republished that episode for a new audience. That's kind of why I did that. So anyway, that's the episode right before this one. So check that out. Celebration of Jurassic Park 25th anniversary from 2018, along with our comprehensive discussion about Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. And that's kind of a good place for me to start talking about this discussion about Jurassic Park Dominion. I liked Jurassic World. I did not like Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. The phrasing that I used over and over and time again was that movie is aggressively stupid. I do not like it. So I had, obviously, a lot of bit of baggage, going into the sequel, Jurassic World Dominion. Had a chip on my shoulders. And I remember seeing those trailers thinking, holy crap, this movie looks real stupid, real dumb. To where, like a plot point is that Chris Pratt's pet dinosaur has a baby, and this young dinosaur gets kidnapped, and the adventure involves him rescuing this kidnapped baby velociraptor. And I don't know. So I was not feeling it from jump. In re-listening to that episode I did on Fallen Kingdom, I had forgotten that I had a lot of goodwill towards Chris Pratt and was very complimentary of him. I have since way cooled on that guy. I don't know if it's because of his personal life and the persona that he puts out there, because he's like, in that time he's become like weirdo super church guy, and which I find a little off-putting, and I don't know, I've really soured on Chris Pratt. He's become the worst Chris, and I've referred to him recently as Discount Patrick Wilson. Not to necessarily cut on somebody's personal appearance. I mean, obviously, you can't see me as I'm driving to work on a podcast, but I'm the last person that should be commenting on people's appearance. But man, that hairline just keeps getting further and further back, doesn't it? And it's very noticeable in this movie. So just to give folks a jumping off spot, if you are a fan of the Jurassic Park franchise or the Jurassic World franchise and are looking for a celebration of that canon, unfortunately this episode isn't for you. I don't like almost all of these movies, and I did not like this movie. I was really not into Jurassic World Dominion. The first thing I want to say, like if I were to sum up my review in a single sentence, because when we go to these advanced screenings, there's a rep from the promotion company that's working with the studio, and as a member of the press, they ask you for like a couple comments. So what I try to do, and I kind of try to formulate this while I'm watching the movie. Sometimes I distract myself where I'm trying to come up with something good to say to the rep. Unfortunately, it doesn't help that one time one of the nice ladies said to another one who was training, it's like, Mike always says good stuff. Or I always like what Mike has to say, which unfortunately the worst thing you can... That's the worst, because if you laugh at me or encourage me or anything like that, I'm just going to keep doing that one thing. It's a real Bart Simpson I didn't do it situation. So I was trying to come up with something for the nice lady, and what I told her at the end of it was, it's overstuffed, loud, and cripplingly boring. So Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom was aggressively stupid, but Jurassic World Dominion is cripplingly boring. For a movie that is supposed to be about dinosaurs and there's fight scenes with dinosaurs, I shouldn't be bored. And I don't think it has to do with sci-fi fatigue. But yeah, no, I just I just found it really boring. And it says something about the movie when I'm watching two giant dinosaurs fight and I just feel nothing. And interestingly enough, yeah, no, I would articulate the feeling as numbness. I just felt nothing. And as opposed to, say, a Fallen Kingdom, I did feel something. I felt contempt and revulsion. I really dislike that movie. I don't want to, continue to harp on it here now. That's not what I'm trying to do. But I guess what I'm also trying to illustrate is the difference in feeling, where it goes from contempt and dislike to numbness and apathy. So this movie didn't make me mad. In fact, in a weird way, I guess I would almost prefer it make me mad, because then, well, I mean, then I would at least be feeling something. So that's that's something that I might, try to unpack and articulate here. I also want to let you know, because obviously I've been talking for more than a couple minutes now already, but since I am recording this after the review embargo has lifted, but before the movie is released, I'm going to keep this a very non-spoiler. I'm going to talk in very vague terms, and very similar to my Top Gun episode. So for me, where this movie really breaks down is, well, it all goes back to story, right? The story isn't compelling. Like, I looked at the log line for this movie, and basically the plot description is very vague. It says, like, basically, mankind has to deal with cohabitating with dinosaurs after the events of the previous movie. And for a movie that kind of promises that, there really isn't a whole lot of that. Like, the movie I think I wanted, talking about expectations and disappointment, but I think the sequel to Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, and I think I talked about this in that review podcast, I don't remember, but basically what I wanted to see was, like, maybe like a huge time jump, where, like, some time has passed and we really kind of see the devastation and consequences of unleashing dinosaurs into our world, where we have to deal with habitating. And there's some of that, but without spoiling it, that is not the thrust of the plot. And I think that's where this movie starts to go very, very wrong. And in the trailers and the commercials, it's kind of billed as, like, the conclusion of the Jurassic era, meaning, like, this is supposed to be the last movie, which I'm glad. I don't need no more of this. But most likely what it'll be is, like, it'll kind of go back into dormancy, and maybe, like, 10, 15 years from now, maybe they'll resurrect it in some kind of way. I don't know, remake, reboot. I'm not specifically sure how they want to square that circle yet, but the central conflict has very little to do with dinosaurs, and that's the dinosaurs. I mean, it's like, tap the sign on the door, it says Jurassic World, and we're not doing a lot of Jurassic Worlding. We're not spending a lot of time in the Jurassic World. not to be too pedantic about it, but that for me is kind of the problem. There are dinosaurs, and the special effects, look as good as they have been in the last two movies, between Jurassic World and Fallen Kingdom. I don't think the needle is moved at all. I don't think that the special effects for the dinosaurs look any better than they have previously. Conversely, I don't think that they look any worse either. This movie is lighter on plot contrivances than the first one. But what this movie also isn't, though, is I don't feel like it's a satisfactory conclusion in any way. Whether it's a conclusion to the Jurassic World cycle of those 3 movies of a trilogy, or do I think it's the conclusion of like a 6-chapter thing starting with Jurassic Park. I don't think it's a satisfying ending to either of those or any of those. The movie is really very unsatisfying in that it's, if it was like a part 2 or like a part 3, like I don't know, like John Wick Chapter 3. That is not. It's just a part 3. It's not concluding anything. It's just kind of like the next chapter. So if this was part of that, and it was just a Jurassic World sequel, I don't know if I would be as critical of it. But if it's billed as a quote unquote epic conclusion, Jesus. But if it's billed as the epic conclusion, it fails at that, and it doesn't deliver the goods. So I want to talk about the cast and the performances. So one of the things that this movie bills is that it's getting the old band back together, and we're blending that with the current cast as well. So you got yourself a Sam Neill, you got yourself a Laura Dern, you got yourself a Jeff Goldblum representing the old guard and the from Jurassic Park, that trilogy. But then you also got Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard and actually a bunch of minor characters from the previous Jurassic World movies carry over here. So that cast is well represented as well. But the thing that irks me is that the 2 casts are on separate adventures, and they do eventually connect and team up, and there's kind of like the scene that you would kind of want, kind of like when in Transformers War for Cybertron Kingdom, when like the G1 cast kind of meets the Beast Wars cast, that kind of thing. Actually, that series wasn't done especially well, but it's always a cool moment when you see 2 cross-generational casts meeting up, and it's very unsatisfying. It's very disappointing. It's closer to Star Trek Generations, where it's like, sure, there's kind of like sort of the last ride of the original crew in the prologue cold open type of thing, but it's very much a Star Trek The Next Generation movie, and this isn't quite that, but the sign on the door does say Jurassic World, so just so it is about those characters and their journey more than anything. But I mean, it's good to see those characters again, but unfortunately, none of the performances are especially engaging. I don't remember Laura Dern's Dr. Sadler character being irritating in Jurassic Park. In fact, I seem to recall that character being kind of empowering. Again, kind of like a early icon of a female representation in action. But she's very irritating here. All of her character beats are annoying. Sam Neill is appropriately grizzled, which means there really isn't a whole lot of depth to his performance. There's a lot of scowling, and a lot of grumbling, and a lot of being grumpy, kind of being the reluctant adventurer. And incidentally, if you saw my post either on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, if they put up a promotional image on the screen for these advanced screenings, I'll take a picture of it and post it. In that photo, Sam Neill is holding a torch and wearing a fedora. And I'm looking at that, I'm like, that's a lawsuit. I don't think you can have a character wearing a fedora in a action adventure movie and not get sued by Lucasfilm or I guess it would be Disney at this point. But it looks very discount Indiana Jones. Jeff Goldblum is off the chain here. It's Goldblum unhinged, and unfortunately, like there are some scenes that he plays that have some nuance and some subtlety, but at a certain point, he just becomes a cartoon, and he becomes a cartoonish representation of all of the Jeff Goldblum memes. It's, it's like the studio said, well, hey man, let's bring back Jeff Goldblum, and, we liked what he's doing in that Thor Ragnarok, and we really kind of want to steer him into his meme personality. And I think it's a disservice to the character, and it's a disservice to the movie. Threw me right the hell out of it. I wasn't into it. But they're there. Chris Pratt, again, as I said before, I've really soured on him as a performer. I'm not really looking forward to him continuing in the Marvel universe. I'm kind of over it. I think I have Chris fatigue, Chris Pratt overload, and I think first of all he is not working out. Like I said, I mean I feel bad for making like these body shaming comments, but like his was a thing where he comes from comedy, from being the roly-poly chubby kid on Parks and Rec. And so when he gets all like superhero yoked for that Guardians of the Galaxy, it's like, ooh, gasp, shocking transformation. Here's our action adventure leading man. And that translates to the Jurassic World. They thought he worked in Guardians, and I think he does. I think that performance is good. And I think he's good in that first Jurassic World. But somewhere along the way, he I don't know if it's a complacency or what, but there's something different now. And like so he's not working out the way he used to. He's Schlub City here. And I don't know if that's meant to be an aspect of the character, because basically they're kind of secluded in the woods, kind of laying low. But I don't know, man. There's some scenes where he's like doing action and it does not look impressive. And I don't know if your male action star needs to be cut and ripped, because like, I mean, I talked about this before, like, look at somebody like Kumail Nanjiani. Like he again, a comedic actor, was called up to the Marvel thing. He's in that Eternals. He gets yoked and ripped and shredded. He's like on the Hugh Jackman program, like, getting like super dehydrated so that like, you see all the musculature, and he gets so fit for that movie that now he's got like he's got like body dysmorphia, like, and he's obsessed with like, fitness and all of that other stuff. And in that movie, in the Eternals, not once is he seen without his shirt on. So it's like, what's the point? Henry Cavill, DC Superman for a hot minute, incredibly jacked, and running around in a dumb rubber costume with sculpted in muscles. It's like, what's the point? But On the other hand, if your character is running around in a flannel and a t-shirt and he's got a punch that rivals mine, that's not impressive as a leading man action star either. I'm sorry. And again, I don't mean to my criticisms go into body shaming, but I guess that's kind of where I'm at. Bryce Dallas Howard is good in this movie. I don't think she has a lot of depth of performance in her roles. But I read something recently that I thought was actually pretty cool. That the reason why she's in these movies, speculating, is for her to learn the mechanics and practice of how big blockbusters work, so that when the call comes for her to direct, say, like a Star Wars feature or a Marvel movie or something, she'll have even more hands-on, first-hand experience. And if anybody has seen her directed episodes of Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, that fan base is ready for her to take on a feature. I know I would be very excited about that. I like those episodes quite a bit. I like her sensibilities as a director, and I think she would. I think she would crush it. I would be excited for that project. So if the payoff for that is that she has to kind of slum it and be an underserved character in this Jurassic World franchise, then I think that's a fair trade. I do think that she's the least damsel in distress and the most empowered. I think if you go back and watch all 3 Jurassic World movies, I think she has an actual arc. Unfortunately, a lot of that arc hinges on thirst for motherhood, which I never got around to doing that Doctor Strange episode, but that's I think that's kind of weirdly retrograde, where you're one of your defining traits for a female character is that they baby crazy, and I don't know if that's specifically moving the needle in terms of gender equality in action adventure movies and genre, but I think she's fine in terms of performance. There are other characters as well. There's a roguish pilot that joins the cast that I found incredibly distasteful. In terms of the character is not written as a real human. They're very cartoonish, and it's like we're trying to capture the Han Solo archetype, but not doing it very well. And I don't know if that's the actor's performance. I don't remember the actor's name off the top of my head. But she's not particularly good in this role. And one of the other things that kind of bothers me, and this is an odd perspective coming from a cishet white man, but so she's she's a person of color. I don't know her ethnicity, but she's one of her character traits, because again, these characters are very one note, and one of her one notes is that she's aggressively gay, and her aggressive sexuality is kind of a distraction at best, and at worst, I'm not intelligent enough to unpack the impact of representation. She's a person of color and someone that is presumably part of the LGBTQ plus community. And I apologize for sounding nervous, because quite frankly, there are topics that I know that I am out of my depth, and I do feel nervous talking about them. But I would like to ask my friends that are part of the LGBTQ community, is bad representation better than no representation? I think that this character isn't an example of positive representation. Basically, she just aggressively flirts with all of the female characters to the point where the other characters are shown being uncomfortable. And I don't know. I think sometimes with folks that don't understand the community, in their attempts to show representation, they don't know what it is. They can't relate to it. So gay characters are coded as horny. Like gay equals horny. And I was thinking about that as I was watching that, and it's like, so like if this character was male and was being aggressively flirty to female characters, would I have the same problems? I think I would, because I think that I think that would be my takeaway. I was like, wow, that character is really one note. They're horny, and that's really not a comfortable character trait in 2022, regardless of their sexual orientation. But I think also having that extra element adds another bit of discomfort. Like for me, somebody that identifies as an ally, I get squirmy thinking like, is this bad representation? It's a butterfly meme. It's like, is this bad representation? Or is this representation? So I don't know, but that bothered me. But yeah, I mean, so those are kind of the principal performers, but I don't know. I mean, the movie's just kind of a mess. I mean, like there is a plot, there is a threat. The threat is dealt with, but it's very unsatisfying. So coming up here, I am just making it to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop into the parking garage, and then I'm going to, since I won't be driving, I'll have my phone, and I'm going to answer some of those questions to kind of close out the episode, because I remember some of them off the top of my head, but I think if I just kind of vamp here, I think it's going to be a frustrating, distracting listen, but, actually, for a quick sec, one thing to before the questions, some aggressive speculation on my part. I think that this movie is going to do well in opening weekend because it has the name recognition and it's a dinosaur movie, and I think folks will show up for this weekend. I think it will probably be number one at the box office. I think it will overtake Top Gun Maverick, but I think that there will be a huge drop-off going into week 2, and I would almost be curious to see if Top Gun Maverick actually reclaims the number 1 spot, because that is my recommendation with regards to Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Skip it, go watch Top Gun again. And I wonder if week 2 of this movie's release, if that's actually going to happen. But I think it is going to make a lot of money. I think I'm going to compare it to Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. I think that's what it's going to look like, because in that first weekend, regardless of the awful word of mouth, people still went for that first weekend. I think that's going to be the same thing here. I think this movie... Oh, you're not going to go? Fine, I'm going to go. It's a green light. I don't have a green arrow. I have to yield to you. Whatever. But anyway, no, I think that the word of mouth on this is going to be very bad. I haven't really taken a look. I mentioned, let's talk about review embargoes for a sec. So I had mentioned, and for those of you who don't know, deep cuts industry terms, a embargo means that's the press isn't allowed to talk about a movie. Like the studio sets an embargo date for when they, in their effort to control the narrative of how feedback for a particular movie is, they will set embargoes. So like, for example, the review embargo for Top Gun Maverick lifted a week before I even saw the movie, and I saw an advanced preview screening almost the week of the movie coming out, same as this Jurassic World. So I saw Jurassic World Dominion on a Tuesday night. The movie comes out Friday. The review embargo didn't lift until Wednesday afternoon. So I believe the studio, Universal knows they have a turd on their hands here, and they're trying to minimize the damage and trying to keep a lid on that poor word of mouth. Kind of similar to Morbius. Like I talked about this a lot in my Morbius episode, and I'm not going to unpack any of the Morbius sweep memes here. Trying to stay concise, but that, again, the review embargo lifted like the day before the movie came out. So like or 2 days before the movie came out. So there was no opportunity for the bad word of mouth to kind of poison the pool, I guess. But joke was on Sony because this movie already had the stink of death on it and nobody went both times. So, but anyway, that's, who is this movie for? I guess I should have said that much earlier in this conversation, but like, who is this movie for? I don't think it's for anybody, because like, I'm trying to look at it from a couple different perspectives. Like, I am not like the biggest fan of the Jurassic franchise. I've already owned that up front. But I don't think fans are going to feel satisfied. I don't think casual fans will be satisfied. And worse than anything, I don't think families are going to be satisfied. So like, I saw a tweet from somebody saying like, oh man, I can't wait for your review. I'm going with my mom and kids over the weekend. We're really looking forward to it. And I am sorry to disappoint. And I'm sorry that those folks are going to be disappointed, because they are. The movie's not good. It's not fun. It's not engaging. It's boring, and that's like the absolute worst thing that can happen for a movie about dinosaurs. And that's just really frustrating. So with that, let's take a look at some of the questions that folks sent me on social media, see if I can kind of round out this conversation now that I've made it to my parking garage here at work as your riding commute with the Mike Seibert Radio podcast.
346 minutes later, much later, extremely annoying shift later.
All right, folks. Well, a slight change of plans, as you can hear by the crystal clear clarity. I am now in the studio. I had a couple things I needed to take care of, so I had to cut my longer recording session a little shorter. So I am back in the studio to wrap up this episode with some of your questions. So I put it out on Twitter. I was like, hey man, I'm recording my Jurassic World Dominion episode. Ask me anything. So I did get a couple questions that I kind of wanted to run through here rapid fire like before I wrap up. Starting with David Johnson. Did you like it? No, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I didn't like it. Again, I really didn't like that second one, that Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. But it's so weird. And I think I talked about this already on the drive in, but I dislike these two movies for two very different reasons. Like, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom is aggressively stupid and is way too ambitious. This movie, Jurassic World Dominion, is not ambitious enough. There is not a whole lot of plot. There is not a whole lot that actually happens, and it's boring, while still also being like overstuffed and loud. It's kind of difficult to explain that dichotomy without drifting into spoilers, but there are dinosaurs there that don't have a whole lot to do with the plot. So it's again, it's an exercise in frustration, but no, I did not like it. Inflamed Simp asked how much alcohol is needed for proper viewing. And I think that's a trick question, because I think the proper viewing is to not watch it. I don't think if I had a buzz on, if I would be any more charitable to this movie than I am already sober as the workday. But I suppose, no, actually, I was going to say, I suppose if you roll into one of those theaters where they do serve alcohol and you do have yourself like a gang of friends and you get a little rowdy with it, you could have some fun with it. But no, I don't think there is. I think I would certainly make that case for Jurassic World. Jurassic World, the first of this new cycle, is actually kind of fun on its own. I kind of enjoyed it in the way I enjoy a slasher movie, where it's like, we're just watching dinosaurs eat people, and that's kind of fine. Mild spoiler for Jurassic World Dominion, it takes a very, very long time, and we're deep into the runtime before we see anybody become any kind of victim of a dinosaur. And of course, the violence is very sanitized, very clean, very PG-13, or at least the original sensibilities of the original Jurassic Park and those movies. Because, I mean, obviously with these movies being more family friendly, you're not going to see like grisly kills or anything like that. But it's a lot of like quick cutaways and things like that. Around Seattle asks, does Chris Pratt show any more range in acting than the previous two Jurassic Park movies? Or did he use up all his acting abilities in the Marvel movies? I think I addressed this earlier, but I think he is worse here than any other movie I've seen him in. And I don't think I'm exaggerating. Like, he's especially terrible in that The Tomorrow War from Amazon. That movie is wretched, by the way. But I've really soured on Chris Pratt, and I think this performance of the Jurassic World movies is the worst. He is lazy and beyond phoning it in. So moving on, my good friend George Soroy asks, how would you rank the Jurassic Park movies from 1 through 6? And I would like to hem and haw here and say that it's so difficult to sort this through, but it really isn't. It's Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park in itself is a classic movie. It's almost one of those like untouchable classics. So that's the obvious number one. Number two, I'm going Jurassic World. I like that movie quite a lot. I thought it accomplished a lot as being a worthy legacy sequel, reboot, or reboot quell, or whatever you want to call these things. Kind of reinvigorating the franchise. And then it's a steep cliff, deep cliff, and then I guess release order. So I guess it would be Lost World, Jurassic Park 3, Fallen Kingdom, and the Dominion here. Well, actually, you could flip-flop for me Dominion and Fallen Kingdom. In fact, I'll flip those two. I think I disliked Fallen Kingdom even more than this one, because Fallen Kingdom made me angry. This one just made me feel hollow and sad. So those are kind of my rankings there. Now, I want to touch on this really quick. I got a question from Thomas J. out on Twitter, and he asked if any connections to Camp Cretaceous is a complete crossover. And I told him, I was like, I don't know what that is. Unfortunately, I'm not a I'm not. Again, I'm not a fan of this franchise. So I'm a tourist, a casual, if you will. But he came back to me and explained that Camp Cretaceous is a animated Netflix show that takes place between Jurassic World and Fallen Kingdom. Basically, it's a kid's show, but it's fun, and they are about to release their fifth season. Fifth season, my God. But that sounds kind of rad. I've never seen it, and again, I hadn't heard of it until Thomas explained it to me. So I couldn't say whether there are connections or not. But one thing I do want to mention. Oh, snap! That's actually a spoiler. Let me just say that there are things in the trailer that aren't in the movie, and I would say that the other things leading up to this movie, like there's a promotional campaign with like an insurance commercial. There's like dinosaurs seen in a commercial. They're like at a drive-in movie theater, and I remembered there was a short. A short movie, I think it came out on YouTube. I don't remember the release, but like last year or maybe even the year before. It's really fuzzy, but there was something where like it takes place in a camp. Like there's a family that's on a camping trip, and a dinosaur basically hassles them and comes up to them. And I thought it was really good, very very atmospheric and scary, like in a not in a gory way, but like in a Spielberg terror kind of way. I thought it was very well done. I haven't thought about it in a long time, so that's why those details are a little elusive to me right now. But my point being is that those two things that I'm thinking of right now, this live action short movie and like the commercials with like the insurance company and all of that, all of those do more better to illustrate the world where dinosaurs are cohabitating with humanity in a much better way than this movie does. Again, the central threat of Jurassic Park Dominion has nothing to do with dinosaurs. So Generation Hicks asks, at Reading Hicks on Twitter, he asked me what snacks do I have. Red Vines, dude. I'm a West Coast guy. I don't mess around with Twizzlers. And ironically enough, for these press screenings, I think I don't know if it's a privilege crossed with jadedness, but like I'm not a huge movie snack guy. So like when Lucky and I go to the movies, we're large popcorn and a large Coke Icy that we share. Every once in a while we'll throw down for like a box of Red Vines to share, but when I go by myself, I don't buy anything. Now, it would be different if it was like an independent house, but these are like AMCs. In fact, actually, the two main theaters that we go to are both AMCs. Occasionally, we get a Regal, but like I don't know if I feel the compulsion to support giant chains with my concession purchases the way I would if it was, say, like a smaller house or certainly an independent house. Like, I would gladly pay movie theater prices for like, I don't know, like at the Grand Illusion or the Grand Cinema in Tacoma, indie houses. I'm cool with that. But anyway, Red Vines. That is my West Coast licorice of choice. let's see. Oh, this is great. Mike Staley asked me, he said he was going tonight. Is there a post-credit scene? This I can tell you without spoilers. No, there is no post-credit scene. A couple folks that I am acquainted with stuck around to check. I did not. I left in a huff. And I usually don't do that. I usually stick around. In fact, I think I talked about this in my Morbius episode, but there's a popular YouTuber that's also here in Seattle that I see at almost all of the screenings that I go to. And as soon as the title sequence for Morbius came up, he jumped over the rail in a huff and left, and missed out on the audacity of those Morbius post-credit scenes. So his video seemed a little incomplete because he doesn't mention them, because he didn't stick around to watch them. And since the movie wasn't out yet, he had no frame of reference for it. So, but anyway, there's no post-credit scene for Jurassic World Dominion. So as soon as the house lights come up, you can split. Melvar over from the Radio Free Cybertron podcast asked me how bad on a scale of 1 to 10. And I guess on the badness scale, I would call it a 6, because it's not the worst movie in the world. I mean, like there are any number of movies that are objectively bad. The problem with this is that it's just not particularly good. And again, you know, I think I've repeated this a number of times now, and I know I'm super jaded, but there is a problem with your movie when there are dinosaurs fighting in it, and I just feel nothing. It's boring. So Melvar actually asked me again on Twitter. He's like, better or worse than the shit show that was Fallen Kingdom? And I tried to explain, like I think I already explained here, it's a different kind of bad. Fallen Kingdom was aggressively stupid, but Dominion is just cripplingly boring. And that's it for the Twitter responses. So then we head over to Facebook and the MSRP Friends and Fans group, the Mike Cybertronians. And if you want to join that group and become a Mike Cybertronian yourself, you can click on the link in the show notes. So my buddy Nick asked me, is it Morbius bad? And I think that's actually a pretty fair comparison, because it's bad in a similar kind of way, in that all the dumb memes aside, Morbius itself is a fairly toothless and boring movie. I think Morbius is fundamentally a worse movie because that suffers from plot lines that go nowhere, and you can tell it was hobbled from like a different movie. And like, you know, I don't know if there's a better movie that in the editing or whatever, but like there are things from like a filmmaking perspective that make Morbius objectively bad. Whereas for all of my complaints, I would say that Jurassic World Dominion is still competently edited. It's just the literal content that I have a problem with. The way that the story plays out, you know, the dividing characters and separate adventures that barely converge. Those are more. The story is coherent. It's just not good. If that makes more sense. But Jason had a really good question that I'm glad to address here. He asked, does it at least have a lot of good fan service to call back to the earlier movies? And this, I should have addressed this earlier in the discussion, but no, not really. For a nostalgia franchise, you would think that every minute of every frame would be crammed with some kind of reference or nostalgia. There are some references, including a from out of nowhere callback to the first movie, to Jurassic Park, that I had to have somebody explain to me how how threads tie together, because the movie doesn't make it clear. After the movie comes out, I think you'll figure out what I'm talking about. But no, there's a couple things, like I mentioned Jeff Goldblum's performance and him portraying the meme version of himself, kind of like that Nicolas Cage movie, but not done very well. Because I like that movie. That Nick Cage movie is a ton of fun and celebrates the meme-tastic aspects of Nicolas Cage's personality and really drives into it. This Jeff Goldblum is just being a parody, but there are opportunities for reprising certain lines and situations that they don't do. In fact, there are things where it's like set up and it's like, okay, say the line, and then they don't. So I think this is kind of like a weird kind of postmodern fan service, where I think it's we're doing the thing where we're trying to subvert expectations by not doing the thing that you would expect, which is dumb. I think that's the thing that I liked about Jurassic World, is that it is drenched with callbacky stuff. I believe there is a character that is actually wearing a actual Jurassic Park t-shirt. So, winks and nods like that. With this, again, it's like there's some, but not as much as you would think, and certainly not as much as you would like. So if there is stuff that connects to like the cartoons, like the Camp Cretaceous stuff, or more deeper cuts references to the other sequels, I couldn't say. I'm not a student of this franchise, so there might be stuff that's there that I didn't catch, that I didn't see, but my screening was light on chuckles, and it was one with the public. So it was a promotional screening where there's like civilians in there and people like, woo-hooed and cheered and stuff. Some people just like to be inside a warm building for a couple hours watching a free movie. But I don't know. There weren't any like chuckles to where like, oh, they're acknowledging a reference I don't get. I don't think I clocked any of those during my screening. But so that's all the questions that I got. So I think this is as good a time to wrap up the episode as it were. This is actually kind of approaching kind of standard episode length. So thanks for bearing with me as I'm still trying to experiment and keep myself interested and engaged with doing all of this this podcasty stuff. But as I said, that will wrap things up for this episode. Thank you so much for listening and for hanging out with me. And if you want to listen to all of my past shows, you could subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, or wherever the heck else you listen to your podcast. You can become a Mike Cybertronian and join the MSRP Friends and Fans Facebook group. And you can always check out my show out on YouTube. That's another place to check out some of my videos and transcriptions of podcast episodes. So if you, and I know people do this, like they'll be at work, you'll have YouTube open, and you'll click on the podcast and let that run instead of listening on a podcast. It's bizarre. I'm not trying to judge people's listening habits. But anyway, so the show is available on YouTube. I'm working on a couple videos. I hope to get some New York Ninja content up there at some point. I'm actually at a spot now where I'm waiting for some more merchandise to show up. I took advantage of the halfway to Black Friday sale over on Vinegar Syndrome, and I got more New York Ninja merchandise for me to show off in a video that I hope to publish at some point. And at some point I might do some live streams. You can find the Mike Seibert Radio podcast live stream on Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook Live. Like, share, rate, and review the show. Let us know what you like and what you'd like to hear more of in the future. Do you like this style of episodes? Am I pushing your patience and pushing my luck by talking into a speakerphone while I'm driving to work? Let me know what you like, but that will wrap it up for me. My name is Mike. This has been Mike Seibert Radio, and until next time, tell all are one. Make good choices.